By the same logic, a decrease in the supply of labor will have the opposite effect. Prices will go up of labor, the economy will start shrinking, marginal business will start closing, lowering output, lower employment, lowering exports. Labor impacts the most, who do you think? The small farmer, the small family farmer, the ones politicians so widely talk we want to protect, we want to increase the number because of the locality, the rural areas, where we just by policy or by ignorance, we're ignoring it. Or by hypocrisy, we're ignoring and we are hurting a lot the small farmers. And small farmers cannot absorb mechanization with the size of the land and use it efficiently. So what do they have to do? They have to sell and transfer. Sell and transfer perhaps overseas and become one of our competitors, because one of the things that globalization has done is increase mobility of the factors. So we might have competitors going overseas or selling to who? To developers. And who else? To large farmers. So we have the demise of the family farm, outshoring production, decrease in employment potential, urbanization with increased congestion and destruction of the natural resources. Illegal immigrants will continue coming out because a nation to survive has to be based on economic growth. So as long as that's there and our economic sector, our entrepreneurs are not going to decrease exercising their power in Congress, it's going to be legal immigrants are going to come in. They're going to find a way to bring them in, otherwise they die. And no businessman wants to have that happen, especially major business to their enterprise. Now, above all that too, it's going to impact too, that uncertainty is going to impact not only in the static, but long-term investments. One of the things that you know is needed for long-term investment is stability and being able to predict what is going to happen in the future. It will be uncertain in planning. And it will be very much illogical from an economic standpoint. So in general and conceptually, who are the losers from a decrease in the supply of labor, employment, output, income, small family farms, local consumers, and the national strength? Who are the winners from a drop in the decrease in the supply of labor? Large farmers, surviving competitors, receiving nations of those resources going abroad, and competing, exporting nations, because we lack that level. Now, that's enough for concept. Let me give you some of the stats. In Georgia, I had a chance to gather a few, and it's very interesting. And these are based primarily from the Agricultural Census, 2007, that was the ones that we have the latest statistics. Did you know, talking about, look, keep the small farmers in mind. Did you know that Georgia has over 3 times the number of farms employing migrant workers than Arizona? 3 times the number of migrant workers than Arizona. In 2007 census, Arizona had about 238 farms employing migrant workers. Georgia had 785. So the impact will be felt more by farmers, or family farms that usually are the ones that employ labor. Remember, the big farmers, larger farmers, they mechanize their operations quite a bit. They use labor too for certain things, but definitely nothing in the ratio that small farmers have to use. Georgia also has over 3 times the number of farms with higher labor than Arizona. Higher labor. In 2007, Arizona had 3,200 farms. Georgia had 10,225. Now, some of these higher labors are the larger size farmers. So we're going to hurt with this process also the cost of labor. We're going to hurt also the mid-sized farmers in some cases. Another interesting statistics, Georgia has over 3 times the number of total farms, the total number of farms, than Arizona, 3 times. Arizona has 15,600 and some. Georgia has 47,846 based on the census of 2007. So the impact on the farm is going to be much larger. The area, the higher cost of labor, and then if you add the voluntary exodus by the rest of the family, and also they're only going to increase the price of labor. As labor exit, there's going to be an impact on the substitute inputs. So the price of machinery is going to go up too as they start bidding, at least in the short run. Eventually supply will catch up with that and will even back or maybe even lower the price of machinery. But the beginning is going to impact also some of the surviving farmers. Very interesting point. The size of the average farm in Arizona, and Arizonans are going to be impacted as much, is about 8 times larger than the size of the average farm in Georgia. The average size farm in Georgia is only 212 acres. In Arizona, it's 1,670. So maybe they won't be impacted as much by the exodus of labor. Maybe they already are big enough to be able to produce with a significant level of mechanization. Maybe the price of labor will not impact them as much. The number of farms with about 70 to 99 acres, I will consider that. There are even farms with 10 acres or less, but I consider that a kind of a viable farm, not a gentleman farmer, but actually a working farmer, 70 to 99 acres. The number of farms in Georgia are 11 times the number of farms in Arizona. So again, coming back more on the impact of labor on these small farms. If the cost of labor goes up, output, productivity, et cetera, will go down. Negative impact of small farms will also impact the national output. The small commercial farms, and by definition is based on income, for the United States is farms that produce between $10,000 to $250,000 of farm produce a year. The share of US production by small farms of that size, in poultry, 55%, hay, 40%, livestock, 37%, tobacco, 30%, beef production, 22%, grain, 22%, soybean, 22%. That accounts for about 22% of all US farm production in 2007. So the impact will be significant. Eventually, perhaps a large farmer might be able to catch up with it, but maybe not. But what will that do? How about locally produced products? Yeah, you can say the big farmer produce locally whatever he has the land at, but that's not what we mean by locally produced product. We're looking about organically produced, more naturally produced, customized products for the market segment of that area. That's going to disappear. We're going to have a standardized product produced by big farmers selling to the world eventually. But that's not all Georgia. That's not all for the agricultural sector. The negative impact is going to be in the whole rural sector, and that's one of the things we want to save the rural areas and prevent the urbanization, the congestion, and all that, develop the rural areas in a gradual, logical way. The estimated total population in 2009 for Arizona is only 3.7% of the rural population in Georgia. Georgia's rural population is 27 times larger than Arizona. No wonder Arizona doesn't care too much, perhaps. Arizona has, in the rural area, 66,977 rural residents. Georgia has 1,809,097 in the rural areas in 2009. So any impact that we do in Georgia to the ag sector is going to have a much higher multiplier in the rural areas, and that in turn is going to transfer to the urban areas because everything is connected. So let's keep in mind when we talk about Arizona. But in closing, what a nation is facing with this illegal frenzy is ultimate issue beyond economic and even human impact. It's an issue of trust in the economic rationality of public policy that will affect for a long time the level of investments, domestic and international, in the country, the industrial composition of our output, employment, standard of living, and economic growth of the nation in the long term. Because without trust in logical and rational decision making, we're going nowhere. That's what business needs. Washington, but not better than Washington, Congress are accountable for at least the economic price the nation is paying for its procrastination and negligence. The impact is too obvious and too old to attribute their delay to the need for additional deliberation, like they always say in their need. We need to act now, and we need to oppose and work towards getting a national immigration policy rational and economically based. Thank you.